Happy New Year, my friends. 2026 is poised to be the best year ever for you. But in order for that to happen, you got to do some groundwork. One of my mentors, John Maxwell, he would say you should plan ahead. And plan ahead sounds pretty basic, but planning ahead just means you are being intentional. You're not running on some opioid. You know what I mean? People just hope that it's going to be a great year without doing anything further. But I want to share with you in the first few hours of 2026 how to strategize and plan ahead. What I typically do is I have macro goals and I make those macro goals align to a quarter. So the first 3 months I have a goal. The next 3 months I have another goal. The next 3 months I have another goal. And finally, to round off the year, I have my final goal. And I did meet my final goal for 2025. So it actually does work when you have goals that are macro. The problem is people decide to do a lot, and right out of the gate they fail because they don't have any recovery room. They don't have any wiggle room. In 2026, you need to give yourself some wiggle room, but there are also some strategic things you need to do to make it the best year ever. So the key to a successful year is to think ahead and plan ahead and nail it right on the head. You got to hit that nail right on the head. You got to act and don't live on the opioid drug. So hope without action is just a dream. Action with a plan is a blueprint for success. Now, don't get me wrong, it's okay to dream, but if you want to assure yourself of deliberate, intentional success, you got a plan. Let's go into the plan ahead mnemonic to help you with your 2026. P, predetermine your course of action. You got to have a vision in mind of where you want to end up before you get there. This is the most important piece. The good book says, where there is no vision, the people will perish. Why is that? Because you're trying to do nothing planned. We don't want to be like that. So how do you plan ahead? Well, you do not wait for circumstances to dictate your path. What you need to do is decide in advance what success looks like for you. So map out your major moves. Like I said, you want to be on a quarterly mantra. What do I want for Q1? Q1 would be January, February, March, April. January, February, March. Then April, May, June will be Q2. July, August, September, Q3. And then October, November, December, Q4. It's very straightforward. So for my friends who are planning, what am I going to do? Ask yourself this question. What will bring me the greatest return? What will bring me the greatest reward? Greatest return, greatest reward. Now, for some of you, maybe you're trying to get out of debt. You got to ask yourself, what are the big things I could do to take me from where I am to where I want to go? What are the big things that could clear this debt? Don't be discouraged. I was there before. I remember back in the last couple of recessions, 2009, I was faced with a massive $70,000 debt. But I was able to get out of it by planning ahead. So again, my question to you would be very simple. You got to decide in advance what success looks like for you. Is it paying off a debt? Is it securing a new job? Is it mastering technology? Is it mastering some sort of software that you've been battling with for a long time? Is it knowledge that you need to acquire? Is it building something that you're working on? So you got to map out your major moves. Very important. Map out your major moves. And I know it's the first already, but you can spend today mapping out your major moves. There's nothing wrong in that. You see, winners know where they're going. They don't wander around. They walk with purpose. And predetermination eliminates hesitation. In other words, when you plan in advance, it eliminates the unsureness and it builds momentum from day one. So, your action steps, in my mind, would be define your top 3 non-negotiable goals. Maybe there are 4 of them, one for every quarter, right? Write down the specific outcomes that you want to achieve and identify the key decisions you need to make up front. Create a vision statement for where you'll be at December 31st. Have a goal. The problem is a lot of folks are not focused on a goal. You see, instead of a stop doing list, right? I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. What will you do? What will you have achieved at the end of Q1, at the end of Q2? All right, so you got to be decisive. You got to be, this is what I'm going to do, this is where I'm going to go. All right, let's go to the next one. Next one, we have L. Lay out your goals. Vague goals, they produce vague results. Specificity is power. There's something that we talk about in the world of business, and we talk about making your goals smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. You got to put that time wrapper around it. So lay out your goals, make them clear, make them measurable, make them visible, make them real. For me, because I lead a lot of people, what I typically do is I have goals, macro goals that I want all of us to achieve. And within those macro goals are my micro goals. And pedal to metal all the way. You know when you've achieved the goal. The people know as well. A goal without clarity is just wishful thinking. So break down big ambitions into quarterly milestones, and then those quarterly milestones, you can then break them down as you go tactically. And sometimes those micro goals may need to change, but your macro goals are in place. You can then break down monthly targets into weekly wins. You can break those weekly wins down into daily, but it starts with those macros, macro goals, right? So write down some SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or relevant, and time framed or time bound. Break your annual goals into quarterly checkpoints and create a visual goal board or tracker, and share your goals with an accountability partner. You want to make them clear. You want to make them measurable. All right, let's jump into the next one. The next one is allowing time. Allow time for adjustments. No plan survives first contact on change. This is a mistake many make. Many people expect the plan to just work like clockwork, but that's not how it does work. The way it works is you got to build in some flex time and pivot points. Rigidity breaks, but flexibility bends and adapts. That's what you got to remember. Life will always throw in curveballs. Markets are going to shift. Priorities will evolve. You might remember back in 2020, the beginning of 2020, no one anticipated the crazy COVID pandemic, but it hit. And when it did hit, the companies that survived today are the companies that had to pivot. They pivoted, they changed strategy, they changed plan, and that is exactly how you have to be. You have to allow time and allow time for adjustments, because life will throw curveballs and markets will shift. So your action steps are: schedule monthly review sessions to assess progress. Sit back and ask, what have I really accomplished? Build in a 20% buffer time into major projects. This is standard practice. Some people would say, oh, that's padding. It's just being smart. It's allowing time for the ebbs and flows of markets and shifting and environmental factors around you. Artificial intelligence is now a big part of a lot of your lives. And when AI shifts, you've got to pivot. When AI brings about new capabilities and new possibilities, a lot of markets have to pivot. So identify potential obstacles in advance, create contingency plans, for high-risk initiatives. Be flexible and adaptive. You see, one of the things that I do on a regular basis is I look at what needs to be done, and I know based on marketplace conditions, based on environmental factors, when to pivot. When you gotta pivot, my friends. All right. So far, we've done the first layer. Predetermine your course of action, lay out your goals, and allow time for adjustments. Now let's double up so that we can get done, so you can go do your own plans, right? And notify key personnel. You cannot win alone. So communicate your vision to people who matter. Your team, family members, your partners in the game, stakeholders, and make sure you align. Alignment multiplies effort. When you have people knowing what you're working on, they help you get there, they hold you accountable. When everyone knows the destination, they can help navigate. Transparency builds trust, and trust builds momentum. Momentum builds results. The action steps I would advise is share your 2025 vision with family and close collaborators. Clearly communicate expectations and timelines, and identify whose support you need and ask for it. Create shared calendars for key milestones, so ensure that there's enough communication and alignment. The next is A, allow time for acceptance. Big changes need time to sink in. You know, one of the killers of change is what we call Kayaku in the Japanese. It means needless, tedious change, bad change. There's a difference between good change that people perceive as being valuable to them and bad change, which is sudden and aggressive. We don't want that. We want change to seep in, and that's when we need to allow time for acceptance. Big changes take time to sink in, so give people space to process. I know a lot of you CEOs, you're planning big things for 2026. Your people have no clue. And when it hits them, it's going to hit them bigger than a ton of bricks, faster than they could ever blink. You got to allow time for these things to sink in. Not everyone moves at your pace. The great John Maxwell, my mentor, who created this framework, he said, you got to move slowly through the crowds. What does that mean? It means not everyone moves at your pace. So you gotta spend time with sense making sessions and sharing ideas. Maybe it's with family. Don't spring a big old change on your kids, a big old change on your significant other. That's not how to do it, right? So patience now prevents resistance later. Whether it's a new business direction, a lifestyle change for your family, your kids, maybe it's a new major project, maybe you're thinking of buying something that's a big investment. Yeah, let your circle adjust. Buy-in beats pushback every time. Your action steps are to introduce major changes gradually, not all at once. Listen to concerns and address them thoughtfully, and celebrate small wins to build confidence. You got to be patient with those who need time to adapt. I remember a very big change that came on us suddenly, my sisters and I, when my parents decided, all right, we're going to make this move and we're going to do it in the next few weeks. I'll never forget that big change. It was monumental. It was massive. It was huge. So don't do that to your family members. Don't do that to your kids. Give them time to make sense and say their goodbyes if it's a big geographical move and things like that. You got to be patient with those who need time to adapt. Okay, next we move into H, head into action. This is where you're resolute and you've done your planning and you're ready to go, right? Planning without execution is paralysis. So you got to move to hit that nail on the head. You got to take the first step, then the next. Momentum creates clarity, and clarity creates confidence. Don't wait for perfect conditions. They don't exist. You got to start messy. You got to start ugly. One of my other mentors, he would say, do it ugly. Paul Martinelli, shout out to Paul. He would say, do it ugly, do it afraid. Do it anyway. He would say, jump out from the building and grow your wings on the way down. That's a bold move right there. But you got to refine as you go, right? You got to go into action. Action beats perfection every single time. So take one significant action within the first 48 hours. Start planning that Q1 goal, okay? Commit to daily progress, even if it's 15 minutes. Track your actions, not just your intentions. Build the bias towards action muscle consistently and execute. For those of you that are in my inner circles, I challenge you to post, whether you're members of one organization that I've got or you are one of my followers on any of these mediums. Hold yourself accountable, take action, and post it for the world to see. A lot of people think posting action is showing off. It's actually to hold you accountable in many of these instances. E, expect problems. Obstacles aren't anomalies, they're inevitable. So you got to plan for friction. When you expect resistance, you're not surprised by it, you're ready for it. Every meaningful goal faces resistance. You know, part of my mentality when I'm setting goals is a BHAG mindset. A BHAG just means a big, hairy, audacious goal. It's a goal that, wow, you really want to pull this off? That requires a whole lot of energy and a whole lot of fortitude. And yes, you get to a point where you're fed up of the same old, and you want a massive shift. You got to go into BHAG mode, big, hairy, audacious goal mode. So the question isn't, will there be problems, but how will I respond when they arrive? The action steps, I would say, think in advance the three most likely obstacles for each major goal and develop if-then scenarios for common challenges. Like personally, I think about these as risks, risk management. You got to manage the risk in every endeavor, whether it's AI implementation, whether it's going for a new job, whether it's investing. You got to think about risks and what you'll do if X happens, then you might do Y. Build an emergency fund, financial and time, maybe even resources and people, alternatives, right? Reframe problems as puzzles to solve, not as reasons to quit. So you got to be resilient and prepared. A, always point to the positive. Your narrative shapes your reality. So focus on wins, focus on lessons and progress. The great Zig Ziglar, he says it's a PMA. It's a positive mental attitude. Attitude is so important because once your attitude is deflated, everything else gets deflated. But once your attitude is high, everything else follows. You see, Zig Ziglar, he has a quote that says, it's your attitude that determines your altitude, not your aptitude. A lot of people are smart, but their attitude stinks. It's not enough to have all of the aptitude. You need to have that attitude that will determine your altitude. You got to get high. I told you, it's not enough to get high on opioid. You got to have that positive mental attitude to anchor it back each and every time. So focus on your wins, right? Negativity drains, positivity fuels. I hate hearing the complaints, oh, this AI did this, AI did that. It drains me. I hate listening to the complaints. Okay, what are you doing about it? Change your playlist, change people you listen to. If something is draining you, just change it, but don't keep complaining without action, right? It's not toxic positivity, it's strategic optimism. Acknowledge setbacks, extract lessons, then redirect focus to forward motion. So start each day listing 3 things you're grateful for, celebrate small wins publicly with your team, and when problems arise, ask the question, what's the opportunity here? Every cloud has a silver lining. I strongly believe that, hugely. End each week with a wins review instead of dwelling on losses. It's very easy to look at losses, but we need to count our blessings and count our gains. So have optimism and be aware of your momentum. All right, final one, my friends. The D for plan ahead is daily review and reprioritize. You know, in the world of business, a lot of what we see around, whether it's Amazon or Apple or Ferrari or Lululemon, whatever we look around in terms of businesses, they're going off a prioritization list. They're doing the big bets, the most important things. And for us, not as organizations, but as individuals, we got to think in that kind of product owner role, the same way these organizations do, and they're able to prioritize aggressively. You know, one of the most aggressive prioritization experts, I call him, was Jack Welch. Jack Welch of GE, he was extremely aggressive, and he went from 300 businesses to just the top, was it 12 or so? He sliced, divested, got rid of, reprioritized aggressively. See, the problem with a lot of people, they're trying to get too much done in a day. They're not leaving anything for tomorrow, or they're not just removing things from the list. You got to remove unnecessary stuff from your list. You got to purge your list. Some people trying to do too many things. You might be a songwriter. You want to write 100 songs. Well, maybe focus on five top ones, not 100 pieces of garbage. You get what I'm saying? Or you want to create 20 software applications. Maybe one is what you need to focus on. You want to do all these things, but maybe it's just the top 10%. How about that? How about that? Make it go down from 100% to the top 10. And these are the ideas you need to have as you go through the quarters, because there'll be many things vying for your attention, but you got to kill the noise and the unnecessary. You got to kill the ugly things before they drain you. You know, time is your most important asset. The problem isn't knowing what to do. The problem for a lot of people is time. And that's why organizations hire, because they can get many people to spend that time. It's really a time game. So the most powerful habit, my friend, is daily recalibration. Review progress, adjust priorities, recommit to what matters based on reward. What gives you the highest return, as John Maxwell would say, the highest return, the highest reward. You also need to look at risk. What is in danger of not being done that is massively important? Those are the things you need to protect and hedge. If there's something that is so critical for your family or for your business, and there's a big risk of it not getting done, then you got to hedge those things. You got to reprioritize, you see. You also got to prioritize value. So value to you, value to your family. What was urgent yesterday might not matter today. So you got to stay fluid. You got to stay focused. You got to have daily reviews to keep you on the right path, even as the landscape changes. So the action steps, I would say, is set a 10-minute daily review, right? Daily review, morning or evening, and ask, did today's actions align with my priorities, and adjust tomorrow's plan based on today's insights. And you're always rationalizing on a day-by-day basis. Use the 3 filter test. Does this task offer high reward? Does it offer low risk and high value to my family and to me? You got to think about reward or return. You got to think about risk. You got to think about value. Now, if there's something that delivers high reward and high risk, and it is inevitable, it must be done, then you can also reprioritize based on that. High risk, high reward. The most important thing, high risk, high reward, high value, those things have to be done. And you reprioritize based on that. If there's something that absolutely must be done, it's a BHAG, it's absolutely vital, then you're going to have to do it. And you know the best time to do those things is earlier on, so that the possibility of you actually achieving them is heightened. Because if you do them too late, well, 2026 is going to go, and it's going to go on your bucket list again. See, but if it's critical for 2026, you got to plan it in. Take it head on, be bold, be aggressive. You got to be a savage. With these goals, you got to be a savage. So there you go. Plan ahead. Predetermine your course of action. Lay out your goals. Allow time for adjustment. Notify key personnel. Allow time for acceptance. Head into action. Expect problems. Always point to the positive and daily review and reprioritize. So the prioritization filter, one more time, is think about reward. Does this action move me closer to my biggest goals? Will it generate meaningful results? Risk. What are the downsides? Can I afford the cost if this doesn't work? Is the risk proportionate to the reward? And don't be afraid of risk. Sometimes big risk, big reward. You got to plan that in, right? And value. Does this align with what matters most to me and my family? Will I look back and be proud of this choice? If an action doesn't pass at least two of these three filters, you may want to reconsider. The problem is a lot of people have things dumped on them. If something is being dumped on you, you got to shake it off. You got to let it roll off your back, just like water off a duck's back. People trying to pour garbage stuff on you to do, or garbage issues, you got to be aggressive to protect your sanity. Protect your sanity, my friend. It matters most. If your mind is in the right space, all of these things have a great possibility of being done. But if your mind and your attitude is low, it's hard. So you got to protect. You got to hedge your mind. Don't allow garbage to be dumped on you. And don't allow guilt tripping. A lot of times people try to take you on guilt trips. Don't allow it. So, my friend, your 2026 awaits. Your 2026 awaits. 2026 can be an absolutely awesome year for you, but you got to decide what to do and when. Thank you for joining me today, my friends. I wish you all the very best in 2026. Plan ahead, be a savage, and honestly, take no prisoners. All the very best, and bye for now.